Welcome to the Vaughn Advice Givers podcast. We interview Vaughn business owners, entrepreneurs, and thought leaders. Our goal is to bring Vaughn residents the best advice from our community's brightest minds. Now, here's your host, author, entrepreneur, and real estate innovator, Robert Caruso. This podcast is brought to you by the value-driven approach to sell real estate, a practical guide to protect yourself from real estate greed and bank an extra $30,000 in profit by thinking like the great Warren Buffett. For a free copy of this book, visit www.getafreebookforcharity.com. That's getafreebook4charity.com.
Welcome everyone to another podcast episode of Vaughn Advice Givers. I'm Robert Caruso. I'm here with Filomena, Vernace, and Inserra from Inner Health Nutrition Consulting. Filomena is a dietitian. Filomena, are you there?
I'm here. Thanks for inviting me on the show, Robert.
Oh, great. Thank you for being here. And maybe before we talk about you professionally, maybe give me a little bit of a story about your background. Where did you grow up? What did you enjoy doing in your spare time? Or what do you enjoy doing in your spare time? And what did you do before you became a dietitian?
Okay, so this is my story, and I'll tell you a little bit about me. I have to start by saying I'm a very proud mother of two. I have Justin and Alessia, age 14 and 11, and a very supportive husband, Vince, who actually support me in every facet of my business, which can't possibly do what I do unless I have their support. And I am not originally from Vaughan. I'm actually from Toronto, and I grew up there. And I studied and got my education in Toronto as well. So my passion for food and nutrition and health began as a very young girl. Unfortunately, as I was growing up, Robert, I was surrounded by a lot of sick family members. My dad's side of the family in particular has a very strong incidence of heart disease and diabetes. And as the little one in the family, I kept being tagged along to hospital appointments as family members were being admitted. And I was exposed to what was happening at the time. And that really spearheaded my interest in food and nutrition. And that's because I kept seeing complications of what diet was doing to health. And in particular, my grandmother is the one that had the greatest impact on my shaping of my career choice. She unfortunately succumbed to a lot of complications of diabetes. She had her leg amputated. She had stroke, which eliminated her ability to speak and communicate with us. And she unfortunately had a very poor quality of life in her last 10 years or so of life. And that affected and rippled to the rest of her family members. And I remember conversations between doctors and family members about the importance of having a healthy diet and controlling her blood sugars. All the while, my grandma had, those Milano cookies stashed away in her housecoat. And so I was really intrigued trying to understand what was it in food that made her so sick. And that connection between food and disease and prevention is where I came to my story of choosing to become a dietitian. And so that really intrigued me, and I pursued a degree at Ryerson in nutrition. And then once I got my degree, I was successful at getting my registered dietitian license through additional training, which allows me to now practice what I do. In my spare time, I have to say, aside from being a really busy mom and business owner, I really do lead that healthy life that I encourage my clients to lead as well. So by no means I'm a hypocrite. I practice what I preach, and I love to exercise and keep my body fit and keep my mind fit. And so I do that through mindfulness, which we'll talk a little bit about, I think, today as well in terms of what I do, but also the importance of activity and diet. So that's a little bit about my story.
Well, exactly. I really want to thank you for sharing that. It's so nice to hear people that they go on a crusade to help people. By being exposed to sort of the negativity of side of life and being able to go out and sort of change that, I love that. I really love that.
And it really is about leading that healthy life. It's not about, I'm a dietitian, so people automatically think, oh, you're going to put me on a diet. Really, that's not what it's about. It's about quality of life. And it's also about looking back on your life one day and saying, I really gave it my all. I really tried to prevent complications. And even if they do arise, there are no regrets in how an individual has tried to lead their healthy life. And I think that that's really important for your listeners to be informed by the right experts and to be guided step by step, because this is not about just downloading a diet or going on some sort of a trendy diet or a fad diet. This is really about reshaping your life.
Absolutely. So now, how many years have you been actually in your business?
So I have been a dietitian for 22 years, and the first 12 years of my life as a dietitian was in a typical clinical setting. I worked at Toronto General Hospital, and I worked at Sunnybrook and Women's College Hospital, and I was often the lead dietitian in a program in those hospitals. So I worked in cardiovascular care, and I worked in osteoporosis, and I did work on an outpatient basis, so I did meet lots of wonderful people, but my time there with individuals was very limited. I would see them once, maybe I would never see them again, or I might follow up with them within a year. So the impact as a dietitian only really came to fruition when I had the ability to start up my own private practice. I was really done with the commuting of downtown, and having moved up to Vaughan, and having started a family, really didn't lend itself well. So I decided to open up my private practice, and I did that, a full-time job and a very part-time private practice, for a couple of years until I completely immersed myself about 11 years ago now, where I'm the only dietitian in Vaughan operating full-time in private practice. A lot of dietitians are not able to make private practice a full-time career, so they will often do this on a part-time basis in addition to working full-time elsewhere.
So what has been your biggest challenge while starting the practice?
My biggest challenge in general, I would say, is really helping individuals understand the difference between a registered dietitian and nutritionist, as well as understanding the difference between fact and fiction. Robert, you and I both know we need to eat, and everybody eats every day. And so it just seems that everyone is an expert to some degree on eating and food and nutrition. And so the real challenge with social media and the World Wide Web at our fingertips is the amount of information that we are exposed to. And individuals really are steered in many different directions, depending on the websites that they may go for information. And so my challenge is to help individuals realize that they need to go to credible websites, or they need to go to credible nutrition experts like myself to be leaded in the right direction for whichever reason that they may be looking for nutrition information, whether it be for chronic disease like diabetes, or whether it be for digestive issues or even weight loss. That there is so much information, so much confusion, and what seemingly seems like expert advice from everyone. The challenge is to make sure that individuals know the difference between a dietitian and nutritionist, and where to go for that information, and to trust us as nutrition professionals.
Maybe while we're on that, so I've heard the term nutritionist and nutrition counselors and dietitians. Like, what's the difference between the two? Or
That's a fantastic question. And despite the College of Dietitians of Ontario doing lots of work alongside with Dietitians of Canada, there still seems to be a lot of confusion when it comes to understanding the difference. And so, Robert, you might be surprised to know that you could call yourself a nutritionist, and there really would be no regulatory body who would be there to make sure that that term has any qualifications behind that. So the difference being that the term registered dietitian is a licensed professional who has done an undergraduate degree in nutritional sciences and has additional advanced training of 1 year in internship to hold a successful RD title. Nutritionist is not regulated, which means anyone can call themselves that title. And unfortunately, consumers may equate registered dietitian with nutritionist and not realize that there may be quite a difference. And really, as dietitians, we're evidence-based professionals, meaning we turn to science to guide our education. So we look to research studies. We look to large population-based data to guide us in terms of what we know to the best of our knowledge at this moment in time, what's best to help our clients depending on what it is that is affecting them. Needless to say, we use that evidence-based guidelines, but we also have very good training to help people take those steps one step at a time to get them to make those life changes that they need to so that they're successful at it. So really, individuals should familiarize themselves with the difference between a registered dietitian and nutritionist. The College of Dietitians of Ontario is a fantastic website to go to, as well as Dietitians of Canada.
Well, you being the only real full-time dietitian in Vaughan, is there any other question? Who should they call? Who should they call? They should just call you, right?
They just definitely need to call me. They can also visit my website. I've got that difference between dietitian and nutritionist on there for them to understand the two.
We'll have all of that in the show notes so people can visit anytime. So
Fantastic.
let's go. Let's pretend we can go back in time just before you started your practice. Knowing what you know now, what is the one piece of advice you would have given your former self?
I think what has been really interesting for me as I've evolved into private practice and I've become a business owner is that I was not prepared for the emotional side of nutrition counseling. When you've gotten to know and work with individual for over a year or even longer. My longest standing client is 13 years. He still visits me every 6 to 8 weeks with his wife, and they've kept on with a regular program with me for that long because they understand the importance of that accountability. And so there is a human side to nutrition counseling. There is a deeper side to understanding the complex relationship to food and nutrition choices. This is not about just here's a piece of paper, go and do it. This is about understanding all the complexities that go into why people choose what they choose to do. It's not often due to ignorance. It has more to do with the relationships that they have with food and eating and how they're using food to cope. So while they may be coming in and we're here to address a cholesterol issue, we're here to address multiple factors like cholesterol and diabetes and weight, when you finally get to that human level of speaking with a person, making that transition to change for them is really understanding what stands in their way and what is that relationship to food and why are they turning to food and habits that they've had for many years and helping them to undo that. So my advice would be to myself to have a lot more understanding in the psychology of eating, much more understanding of what is really deeply rooted in a person's experience with food, that it's more than just being educated on the topic. It's understanding why they're doing what they're doing, and most importantly, helping them to understand why they're doing what they're doing. So really cultivating that and bringing it forward so that you can support them in their journey of change. And I'm very grateful with every client that I meet that they've chosen me to guide them. And I see that as a privilege because getting to work with individuals is just not a job for me. It's really getting to know them and understand what has gotten in their way in the past. What is that brick wall that's standing there in front of them, and why haven't they been able to succeed in previous times? It's really getting to know people. And there was no level of training that could have prepared me for that. So I always say, be prepared for a lifelong journey of learning and evolving, because this is something that just doesn't come from learning in a textbook.
Well said. Now, after 22 years, I'm sure you've made huge differences in people's lives. Maybe if you can just give us one story of one difference you've made to some persons or people's lives that really stands out over the rest.
Yeah, and like I said, I'm so grateful to have had the opportunity and to continue to have the opportunity to work with individuals who open up and feel comfortable enough to share their lives with me. But I think the most important moment, if I would to choose one, was back in May of 2012. I was actually awarded the Healthy and Hot Award, and HOT stands for Helping Others Too. And this was a York Region Award. And I was nominated by my clients collectively, many of them, who uh, shared their story of why I made a difference in their life. And I was selected by a committee that made up of Healthy York, Heart and Stroke Foundation, Stratus Enterprises in York Region Media Group. And out of 50 nominations, I was one of them.
Wow.
And they've basically had little snippets of what those nomination forms listed in terms of the difference that I made for them. But I was being recognized for what I do as a dietitian and the compassion that I have for individuals, the volunteer work that I did as well and continue to do. I work with schools on a volunteer basis. I worked back then with an elementary school of 800 students and implemented the Healthy School Committee and had lots of events around food and healthy eating for those kids. And as well, I mentor a lot of the students in my own office just on my own time. These are Ryerson, often undergrads that want to make sure they're on their right career path. And so that volunteering that they do alongside me and that mentoring that I do for them was also being recognized at that time. So I have to say that that was really a moment for me because although I touch people on a day-to-day basis and they touch me with their stories, when they come in and they are telling me within even 1 week of implementing some of the recommendations that I've provided them that they're starting to feel better, that they're mentally feeling better about themselves, that they actually are starting to sleep a little bit better, that their energy is a bit better, that their clothes are fitting a little bit better, and that they're just a little brighter in terms of, their face. And when they're sitting down in my office, I know that we're right on the right path, and that just brings me a lot of joy.
Oh, must be life-changing for you to see that.
It is. It's fantastic because it gives me an opportunity to work with people as opposed to just seeing a patient for one session and not really seeing the ability to make the change. When you work with individuals on an ongoing basis and you see the transformation that occurs, and I've been trying to post more of these types of transformations on my website, not because I like to do before and afters, but just because I've realized in talking to my clients that it actually inspires them even more towards change.
So let's imagine that you were dropped on an island and there is no other dietitians at all on this island. What would you like? List all the benefits of the people using your services, if you will.
Yeah, I'd love to be dropped on an island. Tell me when and where. That'd be fantastic. I would have to take my family with me, though.
Of course.
I would absolutely explain that that when we're making choices about food, it's about keeping in mind that food is fuel to our body. And despite being on an island, it doesn't seem where we are, it matter where we are around the globe. We just lead very busy lives. And we keep getting busier and busier and busier. And the one thing that we're choosing to neglect is ourselves. And we're neglecting the opportunity to eat. We're neglecting the opportunity to eat healthfully, the opportunity to hydrate our bodies because we're just too busy. And it's an inconvenience, it almost seems, that we just have to fit in lunch or that we've got to sit and make time for breakfast. So I would talk to these islanders about the importance of taking care of self. That although they are very busy and they've got very important things to do, that they can't attend to all those things unless they have a healthy body and mind. And that food is one important element that they need to pay attention to ensure that they are taking care of themselves so that they can then go ahead and conquer the rest of their day. So I would definitely work at helping them to understand the importance of making meals and meal planning and meal preparation a priority, that making them understand that the greater control that they have over their own food choices, the greater control they have over their day in terms of how they pace themselves, the better off they'll be in the long run. So I would definitely focus in on some key aspects to make sure that they're executing a healthy life, as well as getting them to be very mindful on a day-to-day basis of the importance of food and hydration as fuel for a healthy body.
Excellent. Well, that was very well said. I want to thank you for sharing that.
Yeah.
Uh, can you think of like an internet resource or app like Google Calendar or Evernote that you couldn't live without?
One thing that I have done and continue to do, and I encourage all of my clients to do, is to journal. And this is not about keeping a food diary. This is about journaling emotions and journaling thoughts and ideas. And so whether you are traditional like me and like to keep pen and paper handy, or you want to use Evernote, or you want to use a notepad on your phone or your laptop, just be mindful. Understand self. Understand what it is that may be driving you off course of where you want to be ultimately. And start to bring some mindfulness to this. And whether it's paper or whether it's a keyboard, it doesn't matter. Keeping track of your goals, keeping track of your dreams and how you're going to get there. Understanding those complexity of food decisions. Understanding why you keep running out of time. These are all wonderful opportunities to jot down what's actually going on in your life. And in doing so, what you may realize is that it actually helps you to become so aware of what those roadblocks may be and what you can do to overcome them.
I really appreciate you sharing that with us. It's amazing. So I want you to leave our audience with one parting message. Is there a book you've read or a quote that you live by that's helped mold you?
There's a couple, actually. I'm going to share two of them with you that I actually have in my office. And one is, if you're tired of starting over, then stop giving up. And that's such an important message because we keep starting and stopping and starting and stopping. So if we didn't have a good day, well, we kind of blew our diet and there's no point in continuing. And so we'll start over on Monday. And we're nothing more than a hamster on a wheel, just running, running, running and getting nowhere. So I often tell my clients, this is an opportunity for you to take a look, to stop and take a look at what you're doing and realizing this is not about being perfect. This is not about having the perfect day when it comes to your meal plan or your food intake. This is about making the best of it, about making good compromises and understanding that it's not going to be perfect, and that's okay. That we can still have a great day, not the best day, but we can still have a great day and make great choices. The other quote that I like is, half of doing is believing you can. And this is really pointing to one's courage and motivation to embark on a journey that could be quite frightening because they haven't had a good outcome or they've never worked with a dietitian before and really don't know what to expect. And so they may be a little hesitant to embark on this journey. And how is this dietitian going to affect my life? Is she going to take away all my favorite foods? Is she going to take the enjoyment away of what I like to eat or drink? And it's not about that. It starts with the individual. They need to be motivated to make the change to a healthy life. And once they've made that commitment to themselves, then each of the steps that we take will facilitate that healthy life that they're in search of. So it's really about having that motivation and commitment and belief that they can actually make the change, because I can't do that for them. I can certainly positively mentor them to change, but really that opportunity to make that change has got to come from within. And then also recognizing that regardless of whether, like you, Robert, in real estate, if a deal didn't go through, or if we have had a bad week and something just didn't quite work out the way we wanted to, it's not a matter of giving up. It's actually learning from that, understanding, what could have been done a little differently. How can we grow from that experience, using that so that we can continue to move forward as individuals.
Really appreciate you sharing that with us, Filomena.
You're so welcome.
So I want to thank you for joining us today. Now, how can our listeners get a hold of you?
They can get a hold of me in a number of ways. As you know, I've got a number of different locations. So if you go to my website, you'll find out where all my offices are. I'm primarily based in Vaughan. I'm at 8333 Western Road on the 4th floor in Suite 405. And that's in the Columbus Medical Building, which is at Western Road, just south of Langstaff. I'm there most days of the week. But I also provide services out in the Bolton and Caledon area. And I also have an office that I attend to in Etobicoke. So if you go onto my website, which is www.innerhealth1, that's a numerical one.ca, you'll be able to learn a lot more about what I do and how I do it. You'll have also some client experience stories that you can scroll through, as well as find out the various locations that you can tap into me. Now, also in addition to the individual nutrition counseling, I also do service daycare centers and do meal planning for them. I run and facilitate corporate workshops. So if your listeners are interested in having any wellness workshops, they can contact me, and we'll come out to your workplace and do lunch and learns or all-day events, whatever it may be, and talk about nutrition-specific topics. And my other business partner, Fina Scropo of The Healthy Italian, she's the author of The Healthy Italian Cookbook. Her and I do wellness cooking classes as well. So if your listeners just want to come out and see us in action, we travel to various community rooms. Right now we're with Fortino's, and we have monthly cooking classes that we do to inspire individuals to get back to the basics of cooking and cooking healthfully. So again, that information will be on the website, or they can contact me at my business number as well, which will be on the website.
Excellent. Well, we will have that information on the show notes. And again, I really appreciate you being on the podcast, and we will talk again.
It was my pleasure, Robert. Thanks so much. And I hope everyone has a very healthy day.